Now, normally this time each afternoon we kick off with a bit of what's been happening in the race to the White House. Grahame Morris and Bruce Hawker are with me this afternoon, as they do each Monday afternoon. But before we get to the race for the White House, the race for the Lodge, of course, with such a big day in local politics, we have to begin there. Grahame, we did hear from you earlier in the day, and I will recap your views on what the Prime Minister's done today. But Bruce, I am interested to hear your thoughts on this. Do you think this was a smart move from Malcolm Turnbull in bringing forward Parliament, bringing forward the budget, and quite likely a double dissolution election?
Well, I think he had to do something, David. It looked really bad for him over the last few weeks because he was prevaricating on everything. News poll today was another bad one for him, so I think he had a bit of a panic attack and said, look, enough of this, let's get on with it. And, you know, they have to do that at some stage. So, yes, I think it was probably the best way to try to get out of this cycle of misery that he's got himself into. And it might shut up some of his more carping, undermining backbenchers and perhaps ministers as well. So I think to that extent, yeah, it was a thing to do. A lot of downside to it, I suspect, as well for him. You know, very, very long campaign in the offing here. And as Grahame knows, you know, long campaigns can often actually favour the opposition rather than the government.
And pose big challenges for the campaign directors on both sides as well. But Grahame, to that point about the colleagues, certainly those I've been speaking to today within the coalition are happy with this approach, that he's showing some strength, some decisiveness. It's the electors, the voters that matter far more, though. Remind us, how do you view what's been done today by the Prime Minister?
Well, I genuinely thought today when the Prime Minister made the announcement, it's the best he's looked and the best he sounded since the day he sort of announced he'd like the top job. I thought the Prime Minister looked really strong today. And it shows again, I reckon, that you give a leader, you give a politician a cause and a focus, and they're at their best. It's when things are a bit, you know, all over the place, then people don't look their best. I thought the PM looked terrific today. Yeah. What he's actually done as well is lock the entire coalition in. If there's one issue that will unite the coalition everywhere, it is union power, union thuggery, union coalition, and shutting it down. And he's done that. And even better in this case, the contrast with the leader of the opposition, who, you know, some of his former mates are tied up with some of these problems in the union. It's very, very awkward for the leader of the opposition. But, you know, having listened to everyone today, David, on your program, while the Senate is being recalled and they're going to be asked to vote on these bills, by the look of it, they're not interested, so we're going to have a double dissolution.
I think that's absolutely right. And look, there's a lot of other blank spaces to be filled in by the PM between now and whenever the election is, on tax, on higher ed, on childcare. I mean, the list goes on. But on this issue of IR, Bruce, do you concede this is going to be a problem for Bill Shorten and for Labor defending their position on not supporting a building industry watchdog in particular?
Look, it's potentially an issue for them, I think. It's a classic wedge issue, you know, it's the old sucker ball in a way. Go to this issue where Labor is least comfortable and try to fight the election on that, ignoring all the other issues that Labor wants to discuss, like health, education, negative gearing, all the other important social and economic issues. I think Labor has to make sure that once this thing is out of the way, one way or the other, that they start to move the debate onto their high ground. Easier said than done. But having said that, you know, the Hayden Royal Commission didn't actually garner all that much attention and interest in the public, and I'm not sure that there isn't a bit of, well, we're over this already. If I had my way, I'd be saying, you know, let this thing through. I think during Rudd's first term as Prime Minister, it continued to operate. I wouldn't be fighting an election around this issue, but I don't think Labor...
Sorry, just to pick you up there, you reckon Labor should let this go through?
Well, that would be my preference if I were calling the shots, but obviously I'm not. And the reason
that's a very interesting move, though, from a well-seasoned Labor strategist.
Well, because
to say on this one they should let it go through.
Exactly, because I just think it's one of those issues where Labor is being set up to fail. And if they can get through this issue and push it into the background, deal with it as promptly as possible, then that's great. The problem that they're going to have, and this is clearly in the thinking of Turnbull and his advisors, is that they're going to keep coming back to Bill Shorten, AWU, all those old associations. And Bill's got to get above all that and beyond it very quickly. Otherwise, we could get mired in it, and we don't want to see that. We want to see this election campaign being argued around health, education, and how this big deficit we've got is going to be dealt with.
And Grahame, ultimately, if we do have a double dissolution because of these IR bills, it will still be those other issues that Bruce mentions there that the campaign itself will be fought on.
Well, that's true. And look, 15 weeks scared the hell out of me. I've run campaigns over 33 days, and filling 33 days is a long time, let alone 15 weeks. And it sort of started today, and again, I thought, the PM's tone was dead right. But look, a million things can go off the rails in 15 weeks. However, yes, the Labor Party might try and shift the agenda, but you can't shift the 30-second Liberal Party commercials. And they will be coming back night after night after night as to why we're having the election, why Bill Shorten is all over the place, and who are these thugs that are funding the Labor Party campaign. It's very hard to avoid it, but you're right. It's not the only election. Some journalists will get bored on day one, but it ain't going away.
All right, well, hopefully, over the next 15 weeks, we're not going to see scenes that we have seen in the last 24 hours in the US campaign. I want to turn to this race for the White House because it is a pretty ugly scene, in fact. Let's show it to you. This is at a Donald Trump rally in Tucson where a protester with a Donald Trump is bad for America sign was, pounced upon by one of the Trump supporters. Have a look.
Very disruptive people, George.
But does that excuse punching and kicking a protester?
Well, he or his partner was wearing a Ku Klux Klan outfit. This happened to be an African-American man who was very, very incensed at the fact that a protester, would be wearing a Ku Klux Klan outfit.
Unless he did a quick change, it looked like a Stars and Stripes outfit to me, not a Ku Klux Klan outfit. There was also, let me play this one as well, the Donald Trump's campaign manager also copping some flack for doing this to another protester at the rally.
I give him credit for having spirit. He wanted them to take down those horrible profanity-laced signs.
Yeah, you can see him tugging there on the collar. That's the campaign manager. He needs to stay out of that sort of stuff, I would have thought. But, Grahame, you first. What are your thoughts on this sort of behaviour, bearing in mind what Trump said, what was it, last week, that if he doesn't get the nomination at the convention, his supporters will riot? Are they taking that advice literally?
Yeah, look, I never liked this language. The odd thing about today is it looks as if Australia is heading for a double dissolution and the Americans are heading for a double disillusion. It's sort of who's going to be least like in America. And look, I don't like any rhetoric from any leader which sort of encourages violence. Yeah, you're going to get some lunatics, and it's one of the difficulties for the Republican Party. They've either got to lock in behind him because he just might win this, or they've got to walk away 100% and explain why and come up with a better candidate. But at the moment, it looks as if he might be their ace in the pack, or he might be the deuce. Yeah, we don't know.
No, Bruce, Trump surely has got to be very careful about how he deals with these issues. I mean, suggesting that, the protesters might be to blame here, that's only going to further encourage that sort of behaviour.
Indeed, and he said, I could shoot somebody in the street and my supporters would still vote for me. He's got incredibly violent language. Now, this is all about trying to keep his own base, this disaffected group that's backing him, and a large number of Americans seem to be in that category, alive and active and voting for him in the primaries over the coming weeks and months. But then he has to try to turn his language around and moderate, and I don't know that he's going to be able to do that. I suspect that a lot of Americans are now looking at this and saying, my God, is this what we can look forward to? This isn't what we want in a president. How many years of this have we got to look forward to if this fellow's language is so intemperate? So even if he has been encouraging his base to do this sort of thing to keep them active and energised, like a bunch of brown shirts, if you ask me, I think it's going to actually backfire on him in the longer term, particularly as you see both Bernie Sanders and Hillary Clinton engaging in much more moderate language than he is.
Yeah.
I think that's a danger.
Yeah, look, I'm going over to the US mid-year to get a bit of a feel for all of this, but what I heard on the weekend was that if Hillary Clinton does win, then Jeffrey Bleish, our former ambassador here, fantastic man, may well have a very, very senior position in a Hillary administration. And, you know, he was one of the better ambassadors we've had in the last 20 years, and his family loves Australia. I suspect it'd be fantastic
Be good for Australia.
if he does get up.
Australia, that connection to Australia, you're right. I hope you're going after July too. Grahame Morris, Bruce Hawker, good to talk to you both. We'll catch you up next week. Thanks for that. A quick break and then the last word.